Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back. I hope your Tuesday is treating you very well. If you're not watching this on a Tuesday, I hope your day is going alright regardless. I'm officially back at uni as of 2 weeks ago today, so I've been in a very studious mood. So it's that time of the year, I guess, again, where I feel like passing on some of my knowledge to you guys. So get your big old thinking caps on, because today we're going to be chatting all about the Rosetta Stone. Just started my hieroglyphics class at uni, and this is one of the first things that we talked about, and I was absolutely fascinated from the get-go. You've probably already heard about the Rosetta Stone. It's quite a big deal in the archaeological record. If you're like me and you've heard of it just in general context, you probably didn't actually know what its significance was, but you most likely have heard about it. Drake's rapped about it. Animal Crossing has its own little version of it in the game. It is quite a well-known slab of rock, and it's actually really, really important. So I'm going to be telling you how important it is today. Let me just jump right into it and actually tell you the facts. I'm going to start at the very beginning, because in the words of Julie Andrews, it's a very good place to start. So we're going to talk about the discovery of the Rosetta Stone and how it was actually found. She was discovered in 1799 by a French soldier called Pierre-François Xavier Bouchard. Probably didn't pronounce that right, I apologise. But he was stationed at Fort St. Julian in Rosetta in Egypt. Because it was found in Rosetta, the stone was called the Rosetta Stone. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty bland. Archaeologists aren't the best at naming stuff, to be honest. We pretty much just take the context and bish bash bosh, there you go. There's no big to-do about giving it a fancy name. The stone was one of the many discoveries made during Napoleon's expeditions into Egypt. No, the expeditions were not very good, but they did discover a lot of important archaeological material. However, not long after the French excavated the stone, it was captured by the British in some sort of battle. I don't know, I don't really care, to be honest, but it was captured by the British and brought back to the UK. Then the army donated the stone to the British Museum in London, where the stone still sits today. There's also actually a cast of the Rosetta Stone in the National Museum of Scotland, just up the road from here. Kind of, well, up the road, round a couple corners, couple roundabouts, quite far into town. But it's just a cast, it's not the real thing. As always with the British Museum, there's a bit of controversy about the stone being in the British Museum. That's a whole other kettle of fish, to be honest, that I don't really feel like diving into right now, but if you want me to explain the controversies, I will happily do it in another video sometime. But basically, long story short, Egypt wants the stone and a bunch of other artefacts that are in the British Museum back on Egyptian soil. It's the same with quite a lot of museums. British Museum is just the worst culprit for this, really. But obviously, British Museum is arguing finders keepers and all that kind of nonsense, so it's just a back and forth about who deserves to keep what. But like I said, huge other kettle of fish. I'm not getting involved.
I'm not getting involved.
You can debate that in the comments if you really wish, but I do not want to start a big fight on YouTube, no thank you. Alas, I digress. For those who care about the real fine details, the Rosetta Stone is a carved slab of granodiorite. I don't know if I'm saying that right either. It's 112 centimetres tall, about 75 centimetres wide, 28 centimetres thick. Now, moving on to something that's a bit more important, really. Moving on to what the stone actually tells us. The Rosetta Stone dates to around 196 BC, which places it in the Ptolemaic period. The inscription itself actually is a royal decree of Ptolemy V. But I'm going to give you a bit of background on the Ptolemies, just in case you're not quite familiar with them. The Ptolemies were a dynastic family who ruled Egypt for like 200 odd years or something. They had a very long rule. The dynasty was founded by Ptolemy I Soter, or Soter. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce anything. You know what, I just apologise for all mispronunciations in this entire video, because there's probably going to be a lot of them. Ptolemy I Soter was pals with Alexander the Great, and that's how he got into power in Egypt as pharaoh, because I'm pretty sure that he was Greek, or at least he wasn't Egyptian, he wasn't native. And then over the course of these 200 years, the Ptolemies Hellenized Egypt quite a lot. Hellenized meaning Greekified, if you will. Some of you might be familiar with Claudius Ptolemy. He is the astrologer, maths guy who created the first coordinate map of Britain at a 90-degree angle, but it laid out all of the Celtic tribes and their lands and stuff, which is pretty cool. But the most famous of the Ptolemies are probably the last couple. Cleopatra is Cleopatra Ptolemy, technically, and her son Caesarion, who was Ptolemy the 15th, I believe. His nickname was Caesarion because he is rumoured to be the only biological son of Julius Caesar. But like I said, that's just a rumour. I have no way of proving that. I don't think there is much way of proving that at this point. But it could be. So what the stone actually says is a bit boring, to be honest. It's not really that interesting of an inscription. It's classed as a commemorative inscription of a royal decree made by priests of Ptolemy V, who by the way was 13 at this time, which is not unusual for pharaohs to be really young, but you know, imagine being 13 and being a pharaoh. Pretty cool, to be honest. We have a guest. Hey Sindel, you want to say hi? No, you want to sit in the sun? Okay, she's sitting in the sun, but she's here. Sindel's here, everybody. Hi. Why are you licking my arms? We have a guest. Hello. What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying now. Stop licking my knees, please. It was published, I don't know what other word you'd use for it. Do you know what word, Sindel? Published? A slab of stone that was carved? I don't really know. On the anniversary of his first coronation, the decree was put out. You've really just knocked my train of thought right off track, Sindel. You really have. So like I said, I know it's not the most exciting of stuff, but here's the cool bit. The same boring passage was written on this stone 3 times in 3 different languages. The top section is ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The middle section is written in Demotic, which was the spoken language at the time. And the bottom section is in ancient Greek. Here's where I'm going to blow your mind. Up and until the stone was found, nobody had a single Scooby what ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs meant. People had theories, some of them were more right, some of them were very, very wrong, but nobody could figure out the full meaning of the hieroglyphs because they had nothing to compare it to. It got to the point where scholars would take wee stabs at the dark and they could understand wee bits and bobs, but they couldn't crack the whole hieroglyphic code to understand everything. But when Miss Rosetta was discovered, that changed everything. Because even though scholars had no idea how to read hieroglyphs, almost all of them were familiar with ancient Greek and they could read ancient Greek, and some of them were fluent in ancient Greek, and it was very easy to read because they had languages to compare it to. So when they had the ancient Greek and then they had these 2 other passages, they put 2 and 2 together to be able to use ancient Greek to decipher the hieroglyphs at the top of the stone. Isn't that cool? And thus the deciphering begun. So the official cracking of the hieroglyphic code can be attributed to 2 guys, Thomas Young and Jean-Francois Champollion. I'm going to start with Thomas Young. Thomas Young was a British scholar who actually studied at my uni for a year. I'm assuming it was something to do with ancient history or archaeology. If not, kind of bummed out, but he was at my uni for a year. Anyway, Young was the one who realised that hieroglyphic cartouches, which are these wee, like the wee ovals that you see around certain hieroglyphs, any hieroglyphs within a cartouche are royal names. And these cartouches are only around royal names. Little fun fact for you, cartouche is actually a French word. It was Napoleon's French troops who, when they first went into these tombs and they saw all these hieroglyphs up the walls and they saw the cartouches carved into the walls, well, they then called them cartouches because the oval shape with the little tail on the end looked like a certain type of ammo that they used that they called a cartouche. And then the names just stuck. That's a really weird and useless fact, but now you know. Young also wrote a letter suggesting the meanings for some hieroglyphs, and he was right for the most part, but he didn't quite hit the nail on the head for some of it, and he couldn't work out exactly how the hieroglyphs showed their meanings. It was all just kind of guesswork. It was pretty much right for the most part, and this letter went on to help Champollion, who is the guy who cracked the entire code wide open. Enter Jean-Francois Champollion, who is the guy, like I said, who's credited with cracking open the whole code using ancient Greek and help from Young's letter. And obviously he knew that the cartouches were now royal names, so Young kind of gave him little pointers but he sat and did the whole thing. There's a whole lot of myths surrounding this laddie. Supposedly he was a child genius who could speak 10 languages by the time he was 7. He understood the Coptic language, which is still in use in some parts of Egypt for like religious texts. And apparently when he finally cracked the code of the Rosetta Stone, he was so excited that he passed out for 3 entire days. In my opinion, I don't think that was excitement. I think it's literally driven him mad, and he stayed up and he's not slept and he's not ate. So when he's finally done it, he's went, right, time for a well-deserved kip, and just conked out for 3 whole days. And his paper, which told all the meanings of the hieroglyphs and his work in that, was officially published on the 27th of September 1882. So by the time this video was out, the 198th anniversary of him cracking the code will have passed. One could say Champollion was a bit of a
Champollion, Champollion, away, away, away.
I hate myself. That has been on my brain for like a week, and I hate myself for it. Champollion's discovery marks the beginning of our understanding of hieroglyphs, because without him cracking the codes then and there, maybe we would still have no idea what these hieroglyphs meant, or maybe we would know, but our understanding would be stunted by however long it took us to crack the code. So we wouldn't have as deep of an understanding as we do now, but also there is still a lot that we still don't understand about hieroglyphs. There is a lot. They are extremely complex, and there's actually more than one kind of hieroglyph. There's like different uses and stuff. But in conclusion, the Rosetta Stone is probably one of the most important archaeological finds ever. The fact that it's the first multilingual document found is incredible within itself, but the fact that it helped us to crack the code of these hieroglyphs and just open a whole new realm of archaeological study is absolutely amazing. And like I said, without it we may not have ever cracked hieroglyphs at all, or we would have cracked it much later on and our understanding would be so much less, and we would have not a clue what is going on those tomb walls or on these papyri that we find. We would just have no clue if not for Young and Champollion cracking the codes, and without the stone being found in the first place, then Champollion would not be such a Champollione. I am so sorry. And that's all, folks. That's all I want to say about it for the time being. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, big F in the chat, because that means I've done something very, very wrong. All of my bibliography and image sources will be linked in the description box down at the bottom. Let me know if there's any other artifacts, sites, archaeology stuff, history topics that you want me to cover. I've got a huge list that I plan on working my way through, but if there's anything that you specifically want to see first, I will bump that on up the list. Otherwise I will just rattle them off as I see fit. Don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you want, and ring the bell if you're feeling ever so fancy. I've never asked for that before, I don't think, but if you fancy it, go for it. All of my socials are also down below in the description box, as well as the link to my Discord. Come along, say hi, come chat about whatever. I don't really mind, we can chat about all sorts in there. We're all very friendly. There's also my Sneak Elite referral code. If you use that, you and I both get loyalty points, and you get 5 free sachets of whatever flavours you choose when you buy a block shaker. Check the wee box down there for all of that stuff. That's it from me for another week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday. I have started this finger gun thing, right? And it is never going to stop. I'm never going to get over it. It's going to just keep happening, even though I keep saying, don't make the finger guns thing, Bian. I'm going to keep on doing it.